Hello, hello, and welcome. Thursdays at 11 o'clock are QT conversations. And that is the highlight of my week because it is an open-ended, rambling discussion about the things that are important and interesting to us in tutoring. We are not looking to solve any burning questions today. We're rather looking to explore the terrain together. Georgina had an interesting moment last week where somebody said something that resonated because of an earlier discussion that we'd had. So she went back to re-listen to the conversation to reflect on what we'd said. And that was really, really lovely for me because it just shows that sort of long burn of these conversations. What we're going to be discussing today is something that I've been reflecting on from the very earliest days in Qualified Tutor, which is, do you have to be a marketing expert to be a tutor? And what we'll do is we'll do this conversation in a few stages. First, we will unpack the question, and why it might be true and why it might not be true and why that's different from being a teacher or many, many other roles. So I'd like to just hear your initial thoughts, please. And Lucy, do you mind if I call on you first?
Yeah, of course.
What are your thoughts about, do you need to be a marketing expert to be a tutor?
Um, to be a tutor, no, not at all. To sell yourself and your tutoring business, I would say there is an element of need there. I wouldn't use the word expert. I would just say you need to apply yourself. And all right, this is going to leave me feeling a bit seen now, but if you are not very good at it, then maybe you need to get an expert.
Stunning. Okay, you said three really important things. Firstly, you've separated out the role of the tutor as an educator from the job of getting work, which are two separate things. And I really think that I was glad that that landed first. The second thing that you mentioned there was that piece around being able to market yourself and know what that looks like and do it effectively. And thirdly, possibly bringing in an expert. So let's call on Marta next because Marta emailed me a few weeks ago when we announced this title for this topic and said, I'm not a tutor, I'm actually a marketing expert for tutors. Can I join? And I said, yes. So Marta, go ahead.
Oh, do you want me to present?
Just tell us about
Okay,
yourself, tell us what you do, and tell us your insights on this initial question.
I will. So, my background is corporate marketing. I came to London 8 years ago. I decided for a balance between my business and my life. I have three kids, and I decided to invest in digital marketing. All my clients are in the educational area sector, so I didn't proactively selected this sector, but I'm always working with learning centers, with ballet schools, finding parents to our school or learning centers, and developing all the marketing for them. So, and what I realized is that I have my kids in school. I have some teachers wanting to go for this path of tutoring, and they told me, "Oh, I don't know what to do. I might speak to you." And then I thought, why not help individuals to reach their target and to promote themselves and to market to their potential clients. So and that's it. What I do for now. So I do Facebook ads. I do Google ads. I give advice on social media marketing. I explain how everything works together, what you can do. So mainly it's what I do. At the moment I do it for organizations. So like Magnesium, for example, it's my main client. But I do for other tutoring centers, smaller tutoring centers.
We'll come back. We'll circle back so you can show us more of your expertise. But please do put your email address in the chat.
Thank you so much.
Because somebody might want to get in touch with you. And I think you've pointed out the point of need, that those tutors came to you in an ad hoc kind of way and said, please help me. I don't know how to do the getting clients thing. Georgina, you just put it in the chat there so succinctly. You do need to have students in order to tutor them, and therefore, go ahead.
Yeah, the students have to come from somewhere. You don't have to necessarily market for them. There's other ways, like you can use directory sites, you can sign up to agencies, you can collaborate with schools. But if you don't have customers, you're not really a tutor. You don't have a business, you're not making any money.
Okay. There is also the option of working for an agency. Emma, you've got tutors on your books who don't have to worry about marketing because you take care of it for them. Could you unpack that, please, and why you've chosen to have that responsibility and they've chosen not to?
So I've chosen to have that responsibility because I quite like it. I like that side of the business. I like doing something different to what I was doing day to day with teaching. And I've really enjoyed learning those new skills. The tutors on my books don't want to. They don't want to do the marketing. They don't want the responsibility of running a business. They don't want to learn the business skills. So they get the best of both worlds. They can tutor, but they don't have to spend the time, the money, the effort, marketing.
Fantastic. So it's simply a question of you like it, they don't, so you solve that problem for them.
Yeah.
Which is similar to what Marta's saying. I solve the problem on behalf of other tutors. But in this case, it's almost like I wonder whether some tutoring businesses feel like a school where you're the school leader and you create those opportunities and you have the interface with the parents and you sort of represent the school to the world. And the tutors then work almost like class teachers where they don't have to do the going out there and enrolling the students. They just have the nuts and bolts of teaching and learning. Does that resonate? Emma, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Like they get to do what they want to do, the tutoring, that one-on-one or small group or whatever it is, they get to do the tutoring and they don't want all the other nuts and bolts that go with it.
So I'm curious about this. Georgina's just made a really interesting point in the chat, which is that she didn't have to get really good at marketing until she was also booking out other tutors, because then you need more students, don't you? So you really have to escalate your effectiveness in your marketing. But, oh, I've lost my thread. Totally lost it. Let's call on somebody else. Claire Wilshire, what are your thoughts about whether or not you need to be an effective marketer to be a tutor? And I will write down notes so that I can keep track of my thoughts. Go ahead.
I think initially, I don't know, everyone's like keen to tutor. This is what I found, that people are keen to tutor, but it's the initial bit when they first start and getting their name out there, and it is word of mouth. I've been tutoring for quite a few years now, and I'm fully booked all the time. You have to like pass on details to others, and yeah, it's just crazy. So I haven't really needed to market as a personal tutor, but as a business, yeah, I need to market, but it's a little bit different. It's not really advertising tutoring. It's the online courses, isn't it?
Right, but reflecting on what National Tutors does, you're then marketing on two fronts, because you're marketing to tutors to create courses for you, and you're marketing to students to buy the courses.
Yeah.
So and that's really complicated because you speak to the different people differently, don't you?
Yeah. Yes.
So there's two different disciplines that you've got running there, and possibly different social media channels, and you begin to really see yourself as a business person, rather than an educator. I mean, potentially you begin to spend far more time working on your business, than actually tutoring.
And I've got a team as well. No way can I do this on my own with the scale that we want to be. I've got an investor now. I've got George marketing. I've got another science teacher helping, and we've got AI on the website answering leads and chatting to them now. So it's really, this time last year, it was just almost a dream sort of thing. And it got to this far, it's just crazy.
Wow. Do you know, I had a similar conversation with a tutor who was on her knees earlier this week. She said the first year was a dream, exactly like you just said. The second year is killing her. And I think many of us have been through that that moment. But I've heard a beautiful analogy for that once, where it's almost like you're going on a long journey and you have this flash of inspiration, like as if you're traveling in the dark. You have this
Yeah.
flash of inspiration where you can see your destination,
Yeah.
but then it goes dark again and you have to remember that route. And there are ups and downs in
Oh, I'm coming to the end of the tunnel now. There's big bold light at the end there, and
I bless you that you should
driving.
stay in the light for a long time, but I promise you there will be another tunnel. And I remember
yeah,
what I wanted to say, and I think it's important. Is there guilt? Is there guilt associated with switching hats from being an educator to being a marketer? Is there guilt in stepping away from the chalk face and beginning to give that job to other people so that you can generate more work? Sarah, what are your thoughts on that, Sarah Webb?
Yeah, I think there is a bit of guilt there, really, because I think when you're in school, although you have loads of admin bits to do, your main priority obviously is in front of the class and you're teaching. When you then step away I think it takes time for tutors to realise that they are running a business. I think that was the biggest learning sort of curve for me, really. You go into tutoring and initially I was just teaching. I was teaching children something I've been doing for sort of 15, 16 years. And then all of a sudden your tutoring becomes a business and you have to allocate time to do all of that admin work. And it's really difficult because you're not being paid for that admin work, or you don't feel like you're being paid for that admin work. So then you have to start incorporating that into your prices that you're then charging parents. So I think it's a huge learning curve. And like Claire said, you go at the moment she's coming through sort of because she can see the light at the end of her tunnel. I felt a little bit more recently that tunnel is kind of closed and I'm trying to work my way through it, because we go through such different periods of time. So when I was one-to-one and I was fully booked, I didn't really do any marketing. I then moved to groups, and initially I had to do a bit of marketing and then they kind of filled themselves. And now I'm scaling up again, so I'm running more groups. I feel like I have to let the parents know what I'm doing, because instead of having 16 places, I've got 24 places that I need to fill for those groups for September. So it's all the time. It's how you kind of, I don't know, navigate your way through what you want your tutoring business to look like. And sometimes I think, let's just scale back and just be me again. And then other times I'm like, no, that's not all I want to do. I want to kind of move my business forward. So it's such a massive learning curve, I think, that transition.
I think I'm really hearing a strong clarity on what I want. Yeah. And no, I don't want to sit back and scale down. I want to lean in and grow. Emma said, I want to learn these new skills. Claire said, the scale that we want to be at National Tutors. So there's this real sense of entrepreneurial spirit. There's this drive and this push, and it doesn't have to be there. And if you're not that person, if you're a person who wants to fill your schedule, and that's plenty, or if your situation changes. So we have one member who was running a very large language school with quite a few different centers, and they were hit hard by COVID and have actually been suffering with long COVID since I think the first lockdown. And so they closed their businesses and are now running just the amount that they can work from home that suits their needs. And the fact that tutoring can actually be dialed up and down in that way is really informative and important, and actually gives us more freedoms to say, what do I want to do? Do I have to go forward? Those of us who are working in the classroom, sometimes we're propelled to climb a ladder because it's not good enough to stay in the classroom, or no, you can't go to 3 days a week because it doesn't suit the rest of the staff, or whatever it is. You didn't have those freedoms. So there's certainly all of that going on here, and that drive and that clarity, which takes me, Ruth, I want to hear from you, and then I'll go on to our next section. Go ahead, Ruth.
Hi, yeah, I'm in a really weird position, because on the one hand I'm just starting, so I've got to dial it up to, do more marketing, I think. And it's a new skill for me. I've never had to do it before, and I feel uncomfortable about it. Going from being in the public sector and having a salary to being a small business owner. But then on the other hand, I've been off work ill. I've basically got ME, which I'm managing by pacing. So in the future, what I need to do, I think, is grow it and grow it and grow it so that I've got 15 hours or something. And then I've got loads of ex-teacher friends who are really good teachers that I can maybe give work to. But last week I did 10-hour days because I got really into the legalities and the terms and conditions and really analysing and doing it. And I just went straight into my old teacher habit of just working for literally 10, 11 hours I did last week. And then I had a massive burnout and I was in bed for 2 days. So it's difficult, but I think the teacher guilt takes a while. I haven't got teacher guilt anymore, but it took a really long time to get rid of it.
Ruth, you've hit so many notes there, and I'm glad that you've moved past the teacher guilt. I think that journey that you just described is something that I know many of us in this room have had of, well, firstly, of building up to the 15-hour week, knowing that we've got this asset of other teachers that we could call on when we're ready to. It gives you a lot of confidence that you can actually build something because those relationships are a huge asset. But that piece around binging, so a 12-hour work day and then 2 days in bed. There are many of us in this room and in this community who have a tendency to such behaviors. It's probably associated with ADHD. The hyperfocus, the crashing are part of our nature, many of us, and we need to build guide rails. We absolutely do, because when we're running our own business, we are our business and we cannot afford to crash, or certainly not, off schedule. So there are routines and rules that you can build for yourself to help you with that. There are automations. Georgina can tell you all about that. There are lots and lots of ways that you can build support for yourself. And simply just leaning on this community to make sure that you don't burn out in a way that you can't afford to, because it's lovely to have that freedom to go down rabbit holes. But your time is the biggest asset in your business. And where you put that time must be handled with discipline, she says. So I know I'm speaking with irony and yet also with humility, which takes me on to the next section of this conversation, which is beginning to think about the nuts and bolts of marketing. So at the end of this conversation, we'll start getting nitty gritty, which is really not my bag, but I will leave you guys to talk about Facebook ads and all those things. For me, what I want to explore first is, so one of our members mentioned in a group recently, Alexia, she said how gross it feels to start self-promoting. Yeah. And the narcissism that sort of comes out when we're taking selfies every time we're on holiday so that we can share with people what we're, and our kids see us taking selfies and our husbands wonder if we're really in the moment because we're always planning the next post. What do we do about marketing and authenticity? Partly actually being, a real healthy functioning human, and also communicating that in a way that is healthy for the people around us, healthy for our students. So who are you when you market yourself to students, and how do you make sure that that's healthy and authentic? Nice, juicy question.
Yeah, I got a comment about that. So I think you need to be you need to allow yourself to be a bit vulnerable as well, which is something that I kind of do in sessions. It's like a technique for getting somebody to relate to you, I suppose, and it's quite a natural thing that we all do because we want to communicate. So it's like, it's not like, oh, look at me, I'm brilliant, blah, blah, but it's like, yeah, I know what it's like to struggle, because, and that's something that you do see quite a lot in lots of different areas of marketing for different sectors, is like that personal story. But even that, it's like starts to feel a bit icky if you're using it for marketing purposes. So it's like, yeah, it is definitely a bit of a push and pull thing. I haven't got it worked out at all, but
I strongly feel that
yeah.
It gets a bit icky, that the vulnerability almost becomes a tool, which is just not authentic.
But then what do you do? Like, because it is authentic because it's coming from you and you want to use it, not for like evil world domination, but like literally to get students so that you can help them.
Right. Right.
Unless
Well,
anyone is here for evil world domination, in which case, you know.
I think Claire Wilshire's tip for that. Lucy, we'll put you on the list for world domination. I'd love to hear who else wants to dive in about that question about vulnerability, about authenticity, about being genuine, about it feeling icky.
That's one of my non-negotiables, because I've taken off my role as Miss Bunclark and never want to be that again. And so one of my non-negotiables is that when I meet parents, I can just be honest with them and just be myself. I'm wearing t-shirt, jeans, trainers, no makeup. I'm not gonna do this if I have to do the whole thing that I had to do in school, you know.
That's really interesting. So the role of Miss Bunclark has been put in a cupboard somewhere, has she? And it's useful to remember that, I mean, those of us who have worked in a school, we jolly well know what our personas look like. You know, Mrs. Silver definitely was a persona that walked through the school halls, and I'm sure you guys all have it as well. And the fact that Ruth has put it in a cupboard is helpful and resonant for some kinds of families and some kinds of children who want somebody in jeans and trainers who's been there and, you know, looking for different ways. Sue, can I call on you, please? Because I feel like I'm very, very clear what your teacher persona is, and I want to know whether it's different from your tutor persona.
It's not massively different. It's certainly the rules that we follow are my rules rather than Ofsted's rules. But the persona is more or less the same, because when I was in class, I liked noisy, bubbly classes with children interacting. We did a lot of physical stuff, and we were loud. People used to say my class was loud, and I used to say, you know, are we learning? What's our progress like? It's great, you know. And I think I've taken into being a tutor as well. I will quite often say to parents, if you want somebody who is formal, if you want lessons like school lessons, if you want a scheme of work that is adhered to, I'm not the right tutor for you.
So it's almost like when you were a teacher, you weren't a teacherish teacher. You were already sort of bending that boundary there.
Yes, I think so. I think, you know, I was quite happy. You know, one of the highlights of my career was the time the head walked in as I'd screwed up a lesson plan and thrown it over my shoulder and said, well, this is nonsense. We're going to do something different.
I know for sure I would have loved to have you in my school. And I would have loved to have my children in your classroom. This is what's occurring to me from what we're saying, that there is a certain level of the teaching and learning role, whether it's as a teacher or as a tutor, that is actually marketing, that is actually sales. Because even when you've got the student with you face-to-face or online, you're actually moving them, aren't you? You're creating change in them. You're sort of selling to them, yeah? Selling the idea of learning, selling them how to use an apostrophe. There's a certain piece that teaching and learning is actually marketing, that you have to make an idea really clear and really compelling to them. Does that resonate with anyone?
Can I just add something?
Yeah.
So I'm not a tutor, as you know, but I have exactly the same struggles as you have. And my advice for you is that you need to be authentic. You don't need to align on every trend of showing up, doing everything and showing up, showing your family and so on. What you need to do is to speak to your ideal client. You need to resonate with them. You need to understand what's their difficulties, what our parents' needs, and speak to them. And
So
of course, really nice. You can share something about your life, but you don't need to feel the need to show up just for showing up, because everyone is showing up.
Marta, hold on for a second. You just said something really powerful. You said speaking to the needs of the parent and the child.
Yes.
So
and the triggers. You know that my daughter is also doing GCSEs, and I'm promoting GCSE courses. Of course, we need that peace of mind of knowing that someone is taking care of our children. So that's what you need to show on social media, that you can help them, that you can have it's like you were saying, when you're doing your classes, you're marketing yourself, and you need to show how you work with the kids on your marketing. So
Yeah,
you don't, I think at some point we need, oh my goodness, marketing, but you need just to be careful. You don't need to post every day, so you just need to show some. I'm speaking about social media. You need to show some action, of course, some activity on your platforms, but essentially showing what you are in terms of how you can help kids. And this
fantastic.
is the most
Thank you.
important.
So I think showing what you are, what Lucy said and what Ruth has said about I get it. Yeah, that's the message that you're saying there is I get it. I've been there. I've had my struggles. I understand what difficult feels like. I understand why this might be difficult for you, is a great place to start. And then I guess the second point is I can help. Right? I can help because I have a track record. I can help because I understand these things about mathematics. I can help because help me out here. So that journey of I understand your challenges and I can help with them. Is that what it comes down to in our marketing? Is that the messaging that we're going with?
Yeah, sorry, can I just
Please do.
Yeah, I do feel it's that being authentic and selling yourself in a subtle way, I think, because I got really hung up on at one point where it was like, you need to be posting every day, you need to schedule your posts, you need to be really organized. I don't have time to do all of that. You know, we're trying to run a business, we're working, we've got families, you know, life in general is really busy. And for me, that whole having this great big plan out of what I need to post doesn't work for me. I know at what time of the year so at the moment I'm kind of knee deep in showing people that I'm focused on the 11 plus. This is what I'm doing in the summer, and this is what I've got available for September. I don't need that written down anywhere. It's just me. So I know that throughout this term and next term, I need to do a lot of posts around taking photographs of when I'm working with the children currently, supporting them for the 11 plus, putting them on. This is how I'm helping them. This is what will be available in September. And for me, that really works. But I suppose for some people it doesn't. But I just wanted to pick up that whole point of, you know, it is about you. You are selling you as a business. And I think we shouldn't get sort of pigeonholed down this whole kind of route of you have to do it in this way, because it doesn't work for everybody. You know, we're all very much advocating for children learning different ways, and it's the same for us as business people. We all do things very differently.
I think that's so helpful, that there are norms and there are structures that you can use if you want to, and there are people who will teach you how to do that, but you don't have to. And there are lots of right ways. And in the same way that we're focused on lots of right ways for our students, we're also focused on lots of right ways in our business. But I will challenge you, Sarah. There was something that you said early on just now, which was, I don't have time. I'm not sure that you can afford to not have time to market.
No, I suppose what I mean is I don't feel, or maybe I don't see it as something that I have to, maybe time's the wrong word, but I don't feel like I need to spend, say, 2 or 3. At one point when I had tutors working with me, I used to meet with somebody once a quarter, and we used to plan out what I was going to put on social media, and it would all be scheduled. But then I got really stressed, because if I hadn't taken a photograph that I needed to take for that particular post, I would get there and I'd think, I haven't taken that piece of information, I haven't taken that photograph, and I can't do it. So I found it quite stressful. So when I suppose looking at time wise, now it's back to just me. I don't feel like I need to have that time where I sit down for a period of time to plan out my whole quarter.
Yeah.
I use it as time on a daily basis. If I've got something that I feel I need to share, then I will make time to post that. Yeah. But I'm not going to sit down and try and come up with something, and maybe that would be a waste of my time, if that makes sense.
And actually, again, it sort of comes back to the analogy of tutoring, where we know that our freedom is to be responsive. to the needs of the student in the moment, and that a 3-month plan is not something that we make in tutoring very often, because usually we need to be responsive to what's going on with that child right now. And so the same way, for you to have this, to create a system that turns into, I guess the phrase is a rod for your back, becomes a hassle. And you as a business owner have the freedom to say, So I'm thinking about Sue scrunching up the teaching plan and throwing it over her shoulder. You have that freedom. You have that freedom. Now, Jan, I'm going to call on you next, because you are in a different position. So you and I had a look at your gorgeous new platform, Fun Class. And for me, I notice and I appreciate that you are marketing a tool, a resource, and that is slightly different. Your client base potentially is tutors rather than students, and you're focused currently on understanding your clients and on testing those tools. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that journey for you as a marketeer?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I am doing marketing yet, mainly because we're still testing the product. We are not ready to launch it to more tutors and students to use. But so far, I really enjoy the conversations I'm having with tutors to understand their needs, their problems, their challenges, and how our platform can actually help them, support them in their online tutoring. So I'm going to
challenge you, and I love challenging you, Jan. You and I do this. I don't know why, but we always do this. So the reason why I'm looking behind me is for 2 books. One is Purple Cow, and the other is Lean Customer Development. And in both of those books, in the Lean practice, certainly, Lean Startup, we talk about marketing from the very start, where marketing really means understanding your clients and creating a resource that they actually need. Right?
Yeah.
So every single one of your customer interviews is marketing. You are marketing really effectively, because what you're doing is you're baking in their feedback so that your tool gets better and more aligned with their needs. And you have a bought-in audience for when you're ready to roll out your product. So I'm thinking about Georgina saying that she explores interest in a course before she writes the course, right? Or Sarah letting people know that she's got an 11+ program coming up, and then building out based on what the interest and the response is. So there's a whole journey of working out and staying aligned with what your clients need, rather than running ahead and creating a product and then telling them they want it, or finding a customer for it. So Seth Godin uses the analogy of, rather than creating a key and then looking for a door that it unlocks, start with the door and find the key that unlocks it. So that door is your client base. And for me, the closer aligned you are with your clients, the more authentic your marketing will be.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And also, I feel like you should not sell yourself, but to cater to your customers' needs, what they want, and then how you can fill in that hole for them. So I think everything like marketing should be basing on the customer, their demand, rather than the supply.
Unless, I love it, unless it just turns out to be the wrong customer for you. Unless it's an outlier, right? Or unless you are not the person to build that product for that person. So I've mentioned to you before the book Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution, which is Uri Levine's book. He created Ways. And that idea that we are all have, and Jenna, I feel like for you, I'm really, really clear about this, that there are, sorry, I know that I've called you back and you might not have heard, so I'm going to dial back and tell you. So Jenna, what I'm thinking about is problems that you solve. Right? So you're really clear who your students are and what the problem is that you solve for them, and how that aligns with who you are as a tutor. And then the sell becomes really, really coherent, because I'm really clear who you are and how you help your students, and what that matches. Will you talk to us a little bit about what marketing looks like for you? Because I know that you are as busy as you possibly could be.
So I find it really interesting that, and actually I would love to talk to you about this later this week if you have time, because it's interesting to me that you have such a clear picture of what I do and who I am and what I'm about, because sometimes it really feels like I'm not. And sometimes I do get the feedback, and actually that's what my meeting this morning was right before this. I have my business mentoring right before these sessions, and I find that the number of times that they just accidentally line up is brilliant. It's really helpful.
Yes.
And at the moment things are really, really intense for me, and my business mentor is a parent of a client as well, which is a really interesting situation in of itself. But I think there are times, and I've seen in the chat, like other people are finding this as well. We use, like, sometimes when you're by yourself, you use we. And I have this thing about doing things properly, and it kind of like go big or go home, and sometimes to my own detriment. And I think there have been times where in my marketing, in my documentation, in my onboarding processes and all of that, I have fallen into that trap a lot of making out that I'm slightly bigger than I am. And that makes things unclear for people. And then it feels like an oversell. Yeah. And that's the balance I'm currently fighting with. And I've really tried so hard to learn these things a lot more recently, is don't oversell yourself, but don't undervalue yourself.
Nice.
And I think that the more clear you are about what you do and what you want to do and what you're interested in doing, and kind of, for me, the thing that made a big difference in, especially since like talking to you and coming to these things, I have become clearer, because I have gone around telling more people about what I do and why I do it, what I want to do, and meeting with people and thinking about, like, for example, when I met with Jan to learn about the platform, I wanted to know what makes her interested in what she's doing, what she drives things, right? And conversations like that are fascinating to me. And I suddenly go, oh, hang on a second, why don't I offer this to other people and say, if I'm asking everyone else, what? Because I don't want to, like, even with my admin team, right, I don't want to give them tasks that they as individuals are not interested in, because it's going to take the fun out of it. And if they start hating it, then it's gonna, like, it's not good for anyone. So we should find someone who can do the things that we hate and all of that. And
enjoys it.
Why am I not telling this about other people about this about me? And it's genuinely, that's where some of my clarity comes from.
I think what's lovely about what you've just said was that when Jan was demoing for you, you were in the role of the learner, or even the purchaser or the ideal customer, right? And so empathizing with what it feels like to be in that role. And Jan, I hope you'll forgive me for saying that the first thing I said when we met was, I hate demos. I hate demos because they always show you the back end of teacher admin first before they show you what the experience looks like for the child. And I'm obsessed with what the experience looks like for the child. That's who I am. That's why I'm an effective tutor. So you have to start from there if you want to pique my interest. What is the equivalent of that for you in marketing? And Georgina, I'm going to call on you. I want to start getting into the nitty-gritty of this, and you're going to see my eyes glaze over. Forgive me, I'm not a details person. Tell me what effective marketing actually looks like. Give us some of your top tips. Let's go.
I'm in danger of going full nerd, so I'm going to try not to. Let's talk like a human being and not a robot. Yeah. The most important thing is to actually have a clear goal at the top of it, because that's where everything's directed to. Because exactly like Sarah was saying earlier, you could spend endless hours and never be finished. But if I have a specific goal that I'm working on, I always have one big goal for what I'm doing with Green Tutors. But at any particular point, there's a more specific goal of what I'm trying to build into the business, what is on offer, what I know people need, because I've been doing this same journey for the last 12 years. And much as it changes, every school year pretty much looks like every school year until there's a global pandemic. So, so that basically builds a frame, and then the rest of it is just sharing you, because they know what's happening at school, and they know that they have to study, and they know what maths and science looks like. What they might not necessarily know is that the stuff that they think about when they can't go to sleep, everybody else is also thinking about but not sharing. So if I share that I think about those things, it's less scary, and then they might actually talk to me about it, and then we can build on what they actually need for their exams.
So again, it's I get it and I can help.
Yeah.
Awesome.
With a spreadsheet.
With a spreadsheet. Tell me what platforms. Tell me what scheduling. Tell me what good looks like.
So I don't think I would do what I do now because I'm a massive nerd and I love doing it, but it's really stressful. It's taken me a long time. So it's better to start with a platform that you enjoy using, because you're going to need to be on there regularly and talk to people. It's not just putting things in there, it's actually having conversations with people when they respond to it. So if you're never going to be on the platform, it's a waste of time. And something to collect them on, so be that email or a group or somewhere you're going to have a conversation, a WhatsApp channel or something. Sending them somewhere where you can keep them and talk to them for a longer period of time is really the goal.
That's fantastic. So those are two really, really specific things. Number one, don't jump 2 feet into a platform that you don't enjoy being on. I'm trying to hear you. I'm really trying to hear you, but I'm struggling. I enjoy being in my kitchen. Does that count? No, it's not true.
Yeah.
I love WhatsApp. I love. There's just something, each platform has its own culture, and I find it very difficult to put myself in a culture that I can't enjoy. That's one thing. And your second point about having a place to put them. So you're building all these relationships. Where are you going to put them? Is it going to be a group? Is it going to be an email list? Is it going to be a newsletter? Is it going to be a freebie? What we call a what do we call it? Lead magnet. All of those things. So I'm conscious that there's a couple of people in this room that I've not heard from yet, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I do want to invite you in. So I'm going to continue the conversation, but Abby and Claudine, we really want to hear from you when you're ready. More, yeah, go ahead, Abby.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. I mean, what I wanted to say is I actually resonate with what Ruth said earlier, in the sense that I'm new to tutoring as well. So I've left the classroom after 20 years of teaching science in secondary school and rising up to an assistant head teacher. And I finally decided to plunge my fingers and toes into tutoring because I've always wanted to do it. But what took me away from it was climbing the career ladder, but then getting burnt out and then making that decision to just quit and go for this desire of running my own business, being my own boss, dictating my own hours, and doing the things that I love in the way that I love to do it. So I'd love to tell you that I've got an effective marketing strategy, but I've got zero. But I'm making bold steps. I've sent out my flyers to print. I've even changed my banner on my Facebook to show everybody that this is what I'm doing now, despite not having
that feels
posted.
big, eh?
Yeah, that feels big. Despite not having posted anything on Facebook since 2012. So
wow.
Because
yeah, I'm in that boat too.
I'm a LinkedIn person. Anything teaching, I'd usually post it on LinkedIn. So yeah. I've kind of moved. I don't think LinkedIn is necessarily the best for tutoring, because with LinkedIn, you kind of have connections worldwide, whereas Facebook, you can target locally.
That's a really interesting comparison.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure whether that's correct.
We usually say that we speak to tutors on LinkedIn and to parents on Facebook. That tends to be the theme. And some people are nodding. And there are lots and lots and lots of tutor conversations happening on Facebook, but it can get terribly overwhelming. And then my book publishers have asked me to go on Twitter, and I am petrified of Twitter because the trolls on Twitter are just not something that I feel like my mental health can cope with. But Abby, I really want to assure you that everyone in this room has had a parallel journey to what you've just described. And that knowing how little you know is quite an amazing place to be, right? Because of that flash of clarity. My daughter, she's 9. She genuinely believes that she's an expert in everything. She doesn't need to do fitness, Krav Maga, what's it called? self-defense. She doesn't need to do self-defense training because she's a really good fighter because she can beat her brother, right? So I've been noticing the last few days that confidence of the innocence or potentially even ignorance, and that moment where you know how far there is to go is actually a very, very exciting place to be. You also happen to be in very good company, so lean in, here to support you. Claudine, what are your thoughts on marketing before we continue with the nitty-gritty?
Well, I've been tutoring for over 20 years, but I'm extremely lazy and have never really done marketing. So I've only ever got work through word of mouth or from agencies.
Have you needed more than that?
I've generally been kept busy, but
what's the difference between lazy and efficient, Claudine?
Interesting. Yeah.
Right? More time for chocolate biscuits is fine.
Efficient. I would say efficient means that you've organized yourself so that you get everything done. Lazy means that you appear to get everything done, but you perhaps hide things that you should do.
We all have messy drawers in
do
our kitchen. Claudine, what are your goals in terms of marketing?
So I think I suppose I'm at a bit of a crossroads because I'm heading towards retirement age, but
right.
don't really want to retire. So I'm thinking that rather than being reliant on agencies, I probably should be thinking of branching out and doing something a bit different. So I think I probably want to start doing some marketing, and that I'm sort of interested in getting into content creation and writing courses, that kind of thing.
That's really lovely. And I feel like as you sort of wander in that direction, and I've heard many tutors say that they're retiring and they're still kicking around years and years later because it seems to be like that with tutoring. But that sort of gentle exploration of content creation and it becomes almost a hobby. It becomes, a passion project, and it becomes an area to explore when the rest of your working life seems to be winding down. And so it can really come from a place of enthusiasm rather than should. And I think that push-pull, what Sarah was saying about structured planning becoming stressful, and whether or not we need to sort of put ourselves in that mode, or whether we can be more responsive and organic. I do not have the answers, but I think it's worth asking the question. Emma Harper, go for it.
I just wanted to touch on what a few people have said about overwhelm when it comes to content and the pressure of trying to find content for however often you're going to do it. And the thing that really helped me was realizing that, particularly on social media, people don't see it. So the percentage of your audience that actually see what you post is so small. Just reuse it. Change the post, change the wording, but use the same content, use the same idea over and over and over again. And it changed my life. And also,
that's an amazing piece of advice.
Yeah, like just reuse it, repurpose it. So like my frequently asked questions, they might be posted as a frequently asked question, but then they might be posted again as this is how our groups run.
Right.
Like it's the same content. It's the same content.
And what's useful is that Hannah, who's a marketing expert, and Marta are both nodding along. So you're clearly on the right lines. And then what else?
The other thing is, depending on how you're doing it, if you're email marketing or blog writing that's long form, take it, cut it up into like 10 sections, and you've got 10 social media posts. And there is actually AI that will do it for you.
I was just going to ask you about AI. Are you still here? No, Claire's popped off.
Marta might be able to tell us what the AI is that will do it for you, but you can do it with videos as well, which again, I haven't explored yet, but I'm at that point where I'm like, I know that's what I need to do next. I just need to learn how.
Fantastic. Marta, closing words. You came in asking you wanted to learn what tutors actually want and need.
Exactly. Well,
thank
you so much for being here. I've learned that you have exactly the same struggles as everyone with any other business. You have agencies working for that, and I think that's great. I think you need to be on social media on the one that you want to be, and that you feel comfortable to be, and where the parents are. There's no need of feeling overwhelmed to do it. We don't need to have a plan. We need to do exactly repurpose content. It's super important. People need to see over and over again the same things, because not everyone sees what we post exactly how it was said. We see everything that we create, but the other ones don't. So repurpose, use the social media that you want to use, be authentic. Well, I work with Facebook ads, Instagram ads, Google ads. It's quite an important part of creating lead generation for any business. But of course, the basic is organically. So if you don't do a good organic work, there's no point on investing on social media. And of course, referrals, and all the other what the other parents say about you. It's extremely important.
Thank you. Yeah, and somebody put that in the chat earlier as well. Collect testimonials.
Yes,
Don't
it was
be
me.
shy,
Yeah.
ask them. We've got the Thank Your Tutor campaign coming up now for World Tutors Day. We have to teach parents to remember to thank us, and we have to teach them that the best way to thank us is through a verified testimonial, because that way it helps us to get more clients. And as Abby and Claudine are saying, if you can fill up your schedule with personal recommendations, then happy days. You can go home and eat tea and biscuits and not worry about social media. I would love to suggest, just as we wrap up this conversation, there is a much broader definition of marketing that includes customer research, as we were discussing with Jan, that includes the way you show up in the classroom, as we were discussing with Sue, that includes being authentic and vulnerable, as Lucy was mentioning, and that role of marketing as how we present ourselves in the world is something that we engage with constantly, that our children engage with constantly, and that may well be also wrecking our mental health. And so there is a push-pull with marketing and how through and through we are. We have this lovely opportunity because tutoring is such a lovely job. It's a healthy job. It's a job that helps good people to do good things. So we can afford to be quite transparent and quite aligned between who we are, what the parent needs and what the child needs. And that allows us to really stay very, very close to our customer base. I think that definition of marketing becomes much, much more interesting. And then the social media posting, the top tips, the lead generation, all of that actually becomes part of our sales process. And then that sort of ickiness is dispelled, because sales is sales. You have to do sales. The minute you leave the classroom, you have to do sales. Yeah. And so the role of selling your tutoring services becomes something much cleaner and less complicated. So marketing as a way we present ourselves in the world, and sales as a process, a funnel, a pipeline, and all of those technical things that we are learning because we are lifelong learners, becomes really interesting, but far less enmeshed. Sarah, your point about great big 3-month campaigns becoming stale has really resonated with me. And Georgina, your point about you have to be there to reply to the communication with them. I feel like that landed very powerfully as well, because it really is about relationship. Everything is about relationship, and tutoring, more than anything else, is a highly relational discipline. This is not data entry. Yeah. So I will remind you that this conversation is not supposed to have any outcomes except the participation in the conversation. And the fact that you guys keep coming back every week tells me that feels valuable to you. So I'm really, really chuffed, because as I told you, this is my happy place. So I will remind you that being a Qualified Tutor member has a ton of benefits, and one is participating in conversations like this. If you're not yet a member, please email me, julia@qualifiedtutor.org, and I would love to show you how to become a member. I see us growing and developing as a collective every day, and I see us making change together in the world, and I'm really, really proud of that. I had 3 lovely pieces of feedback today that have bolstered me, and although I try to be immune to the good and the bad, it all helps and it all drinks in. I am so glad to learn you, to know you, and to build this community with you. Thank you, Marta. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Georgina. Thank you, Claudine. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, as always, Hannah. Have a lovely weekend. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.